Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. This episode, we have Netflix 212th film from 2020. It's the teen romantic drama, All the Bright Places. Directed by Brett Haley, it stars Elle Fanning, Justice Smith, Alexandra Shipp, Kelli O'Hara, Lamar Johnson, Virginia Gardner, Felix Mallad, Sofia Hasmik, Keegan-Michael and Luke Wilson. I'm Jesse, and I'm with MJ. How are you?
I'm very, very well. How are you?
Good. I'm happy to see you. Happy to talk about this one. I've been waiting all week to talk about it, so I'm very excited.
I think it's going to be one of those ones that's going to be good to talk about too.
I hope so. So we do start our show off with the fast flick, where we do a quick summary about the film. Let's put a spoiler alert out there before we talk about this film. So if you haven't seen this film and are interested, give us a pause, come back later on, because we're going to spoil it. So that leads us. Give us your quick summary about this one.
Fast flicks for this movie is a guy attempts to wrestle his classmate out of a funk after her sister dies in a car accident.
I like that. It's straight to the point, which is really good. I've just said it's a class project bringing together two unlikely teens with more to be learned than just the schoolwork.
Cool class project too. Like I'd be happy to do something like that in like the more senior years of high school. That seems pretty chill.
Yeah, excellent. So, what else can you sort of tell us about this one?
Well,
2 secs.
Unsurprisingly, yep.
All right. So, what did you learn about the film?
So, based on a novel, as once you start watching it, you kind of get that real sort of that teen angst kind of novel feel to it. So, the book itself was called All the Bright Places, just like the film, written by Jennifer Niven. So basically, Jennifer Niven, the author, said that she found inspiration to write this book after having, she calls it, the privilege of knowing and falling in love with a boy who had bipolar disorder. So that's kind of the basis of why she wanted to write the novel in the first place. In July 2015 was when it was first announced. July 2015, so bear with me, that's quite a while ago. That's when they announced that Elle Fanning was going to star in this movie. We knew that the author, Jennifer Niven, was going to be adapting that screenplay. Apparently, Elle Fanning was actually reportedly cast for this film 5 months prior to the book even coming out, which is super cool. So Jennifer Niven actually said that Elle Fanning was kind of her first choice to play Violet. So when she's writing this book and writing this story, that she had Elle Fanning in her head. So let's fast forward like 3 years. So nothing happens for quite a while. And then the next thing we hear about it is when they've announced Justice Smith to join the cast. They also had Brett Haley coming on as director, and Liz Hannah was co-writing the script with Jennifer Niven. So Justice Smith announcement caused a little bit of controversy with fans due to his lack of similarity with the character that was portrayed in the book. Obviously, I haven't read the book, but they weren't too happy. I think there was one point where Jennifer Niven said that Nicholas Hoult was her first choice to play Finch. She put a poll up as well on Twitter of the 5 or 6 guys that came up on the poll. They're all sort of young, white, handsome, brown hair kind of guys, which must have just been
matches
the exact
book.
same
I think it matches the
description
book,
as the character. Yeah, exactly right. So there's a bit of uproar, but obviously someone like me watching this film with absolutely no context, the casting seems great. Echo Lake Entertainment and Film Nation were the producers of this film. In October of 2018 is when it was first announced that Netflix was going to distribute it. And the principal photography began that same month. It was shot in Ohio. And then it was released on February 28, 2020 via Netflix worldwide. And that's how we saw this film.
Love it. Yeah, I think it was released on the 8th of Feb just in Japan and South Korea on Netflix. So maybe they were like, we'll get in before Valentine's Day and get it on. But yeah, obviously a Netflix original. That's why we've got it. And again, this is one of those films this time of the year where this is another one of those films that made that Reframe Award top 100 popular narrative feature film list as well.
Okay.
So interesting there. Only other thing I'll add, I guess, is that obviously this film does cover some pretty important issues, but some sensitive issues too. And Netflix sort of acknowledged after 13 Reasons Why, one of their very popular TV shows, that they had a few issues with that. So when working on this film, they provided a network of mental health professionals to consult at each stage of production throughout the film. So the quote from the director was that they ran the script by these professionals, talked to them in pre-production about the message that they were putting forth, and they made sure they weren't depicting anything in a dangerous way or that could be triggering. And there was a lot of conversation about what the film was about and saying how they were going to say that too. So to support this too, Netflix actually set up like an official website for the film, which is all the bright places film.info, which literally has links and information about the film for further support. So good on Netflix for taking that approach with this film, I think.
For sure. And it shows how serious they are about the reasoning behind making a film like this as well.
I agree. Translations around the world. This one had so many. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe how many there were. There's some goodies. So let's go through it. So Argentina, it was Violet and Finch. That's all right. That's the two main characters.
That's fine.
Basic.
Yeah.
All right. Brazil, it was just called By Amazing Places. In Bulgaria, it was called All Our Locations. in Egypt, it was A Bit of Hope. It's in okay. In Finland, it was One Perfect Day. I'm not 100% sure that's.
That's not right.
In France, it was All Our Perfect Days. So I guess they took that perfect day and ran with it a little bit, like changed the context a little bit. In Germany, it was All the Damn Perfect Days. In Hungary, it was With You. Doesn't give you any context at all.
Okay.
In Italy, it was Tell Me About a Perfect Day. In Japan, it was The Most Wonderful Thing. In Norway, it was Days with Blue Skies, which is interesting.
Okay.
In Russia, it was All Happy Places. I'm not 100% sure that's the right translation for the word bright. In Sweden, it was called Like Stars in the Night, which I thought was funny. Taiwan, it was The Brilliant Time in Life. In Turkey, it was On the Edge of Life. United Arab Emirates, it was A Bit of Hope. And in Vietnam, it was called The Beautiful Day. So a big variety of titles across the world for this one.
Okay. I mean, let's think about it, right? All the Bright Places is obviously a play on words with bright and right. So as soon as you start to translate that to another language, it's completely gone. So they're kind of running rogue with it.
Yeah, exactly. So the tagline. You said the tagline for this one?
No, I did not.
It was Live Life at Full Brightness.
Oh yeah,
which I don't mind.
That's all right with the title. Yeah.
Yep, I agree. All right. What were the critics and audiences saying about this film?
It is sitting at 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, and that's off 32,000 ratings. So it's pretty honest, pretty healthy, pretty solid. You'd be happy with that. A bit lower on Letterboxd, but not terrible. It's 2.9 out of 5. Nearly 78,000 ratings on Letterboxd. And I actually thought it was noteworthy that nearly 6,000 of those were 5-star ratings. If you had a look at the graph when it spat it out, it was a bit abnormal in terms of the 5 stars. Had a big chunk there. So there were people that absolutely adored this movie.
And like on Letterboxd, that's the amount of people that gave it a rating. It's been logged by 116,000 people. Like actually logged as being watched. So over 100,000 people.
We should start talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's adds an extra 30, nearly 40,000 people that have actually gone on Letterboxd and said, "Yep, I've watched it." So pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly.
Rotten Tomatoes, it's fresh. It's at 65%. It's on 40 reviews. So not certified. Yep. The audience similar, 61% on more than 250. So overall, sits in that middle range of some people are probably going to hate it, and some people are going to love it.
Which in the 200 odd films that we've done on Netflix originals, that sits in the higher echelon of some of these films. So Netflix got to be happy.
So true. Well, what are your early thoughts on this one?
This movie did make me feel quite a lot. There are a lot of emotions going on watching this film. And I actually really liked it. I think there's a lot to take out of it in terms of the way you look at life, the way you look at other people, the way that you interact and react and judge, and that sort of constant search for why we're here, or understanding what we're afraid of, or what makes us tick, all that kind of stuff that we all think about in our head 24/7 without even knowing we're doing it. I think it's really beautiful in some ways. It's obviously it's heartbreaking and tragic in other ways. I thought Justice Smith was brilliant. I haven't really enjoyed him from what I've seen him in so far. So I wasn't excited to see him in the role. I thought he was really, really good. I thought Elle Fanning was hard work, and obviously I'm keen to sort of chat with you about this once we start talking about characters. But yeah, this was a big tick for me.
Yeah, I'm saying bloody love this movie. Thought it was great. Remind me of A Walk to Remember, just when I was sort of a teen. And that sort of
thing. That's the one movie I thought. I know it's a little bit different, but that is the one thing that came to mind for me too.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that movie too. So I think it is perfectly put together really well. It's emotional, done really nicely. I think it's the kind of young adult film that Netflix should be making all the time.
Yep, I'll vouch for that.
So characters, I guess we talk about characters. This is interesting because we've got our two mains, and that's really all I want to talk about, to be honest. I don't know about you, but this is literally their film. Like whatever country it was, what country was it? In Argentina, Violet and Finch. I think that's what this film's about. Hit us off.
Well, yeah, I'm actually keen. I reckon I'm going to have some differing thoughts to you after hearing you say that, which is going to be interesting. I'm going to start with Finch, Theodore Finch, because to me, this is. I know everyone, the whole sort of violence thing. This is more his movie, and this is just the way that I reacted to the film. I thought this was obviously a very complicated character that was covered really, really well. They do a really good job of keeping some mystery behind him throughout the first half of the film, and you're focused at that time so hard on Violet. And his sort of side of the story doesn't feel important. But for me, I was always kind of left wanting more, which was good because I was excited by the fact that I knew I was going to get some more about his backstory and figure out what's actually going on with him. So he's got this sort of charismatic, smart-assy exterior, but he's obviously a guy who is going through hell, and he's trying to do whatever he can do to stay afloat. He was dealing with so much mentally, and they obviously don't specify the labels in this film. Watching the film, I kind of assume that he's got bipolar disorder after reading upon the inspiration for the book itself. You assume that is definitely the case, but regardless, like you can imagine that whatever's going on, it's probably stemming from this abusive father and unsettled family life that he's kind of got no idea if he's ever going to be able to turn off these apparent blackouts that he experiences. You have to imagine that he keeps sinking into this deeper and deeper depression that he doesn't even know if he still exists when he's down in that hole. And that's just a horrible thing to go through. So he remembers very little about his dad, and he kind of wants to know if there's any reasoning behind the way his dad treated him, because maybe if he can figure out why his dad was this abusive arsehole, then he could find a solution to his own woes. You must be thinking like, my dad was a terrible person. I've got these really bad thoughts and feelings. I've obviously got what he's got. Can we fix it? And then he sort of gets to a point where he's too proud to ask for help. He's not really divulging his problems to anybody. And because of all this, he's really lonely. He's this super lonely guy going through these battles completely unassisted. He's totally unequipped to combat them. And it's a really tragic tale because throughout this film, all he wants to do is make somebody else feel good because he understands the pain that they're going through, and he wants to do everything he can to fix that. And that's they do such a great job of making this character feel really real.
Yeah, realness. That's it. And I can't, I don't know what else to add because you covered that off really, really well. I think that conversation he has with his sister I think it was at her work, where like you were mentioning about, dad and all that sort of stuff. And I think that was sort of he just wanted her to have the answer, and she didn't have the answer. She's like, you're who you are. Dad was who he was, and it's not because of you of that. And I think that almost based on whatever he was suffering from, that wasn't enough for him at that time. And that's where it sort of continued to spiral downward. And yeah, it's because he was prior to this confused and damaged. Is this kid that, he's on his last chance at school, having to see that counselor too. You can only imagine the sort of things that had happened at school and in his life prior to, we got that little glimpse of the dad beating up on him, but like what else happened to him before this film? Because that nickname, the Freak, as well. Obviously, there's a lot of bad memories, and like you said, that idea of him wanting to do something nice for someone was just really nice. And I did like to see some of the strategies that we saw him use as a character to deal with his anger. That loss of control that he felt, like the sticky notes, the running, the listening to the music, the zoning out in the water, those sorts of things. And I think that was all done nicely too, because you needed some explanation for that missing at times. What was he doing? What was he going on? Was he was he going on runs? Was he hiding out under the water? What was he doing? Because he needed to be able to put together those feelings and emotions and not take them out on someone else. And that was his easiest way, was to isolate himself and deal with it himself.
And yet these are things that he's taught himself, basically. That's the thing. He's doing this so alone, and they seem like fine techniques, but how much better would it be if he actually had some support to help him through maybe better ways to deal with it? And that's the saddest thing. But we should move on to Violet. And this is I guess where I changed my tune a little bit. The target audience for this story is most likely, young girls, young women, right? So invariably watching this film, they're going to be putting themselves in Violet's shoes to some extent, like ignoring the backstory of obviously the fact that her sister just passed away, but the idea of being misunderstood girl in high school, and you're bringing in this bigger suite of people who can relate to this character, right? So in this case, Finch is the guy who's kind of shaking you out of your funk, and he's the guy who could potentially be your love interest, and that all adds up and that all makes sense. But for me, watching this film as a straight male, I see myself more in Finch's shoes, and from that perspective, they don't make Violet desirable at all. So when the pair do get together, the majority of the audience are probably rejoicing because, like, yes, we finally got the guy. Whereas I'm watching going, I have no idea where that came from. I genuinely, and this is so naive when I think back what film I'm actually watching, I got to a point where I'm like, oh, this is cool because this is not a romantic film. This is two friends coming together to help each other. And when the romantic stuff happened, it really knocked me out because I wasn't expecting it and it didn't fit, it didn't feel right. Because she's such hard work with good reason, of course, because she's gone through so much, but she's mopey, she's rude, she's standoffish. She very rarely thinks or cares about anybody else rather than herself. And that's okay because she's been through so much. And that doesn't make it a character that I'm interested in. That's the only problem. So she breaks out of her rut a little bit, but probably not enough for me to really get on board. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's been through so much, particularly by the end of the film. You take your hat off to the way she handles it and she can accept it. But I do stand by the fact that she's just such a tough hang. So I can sympathize with her, but I have no real interest in watching, say, another movie about her, because this one just doesn't do anything for me as a character that makes me interested in her. That sounds really harsh, but that's how I felt watching the movie.
No, I think that's good. Like, it was definitely a part of me at the start. I was like, why is he trying so hard with her? Because she's giving him absolutely donuts back, been nothing but horrible to him. But me thinking through that, I was like, that's him recognizing himself in her and him wanting someone to have done the same thing for him. So I get why they had to have her so standoffish towards him. But yeah, at the same time, it's really hard to want to get on board with the romantic connection because it maybe felt a little bit out there. But in saying that, once they had that first kiss, I was like, oh, cool, I'm in now. Like, I'm into them having some happiness in their life, because you got bookends of pretty deep and dark stuff. It was just nice to see them actually enjoying some moments in their life, enjoying those bright places. And those bright places for them at that time included a little bit of romance. Yeah, like you mentioned, that trauma that, obviously happened with her sister in the car accident. And I thought that the fear of her getting back into a car was done really well. I think that obviously the idea of depression and struggling with all situations in life, and more often than not, it happened to be with communication with Finch. But I felt like Finch, he did bring her back to life a little bit. That mini roller coaster was sort of like that moment where I thought, this is all going to turn. She was going to freak out, and it surprised me. I was like,
me too.
When she actually got up and was like, that was cool. It was like she's reborn. She's ready to go, and I liked that. I thought that was cool. Yeah. All right. I think that's about it for the characters. The rest are all just sort of sides to their story, realistically. But we can talk about the director, Brett Haley. What did you find out about Brett?
Brett's directed a few features. The only one that I've actually seen that he's directed is The Hero, starring Sam Elliott, which I enjoyed, and I enjoyed this. Similar sort of vibes in the talking about more about the what's going on in someone's head and the emotional journey and turmoil that they go through. So I can see, why both of them might have worked. But apart from that, I actually didn't know much of his stuff.
Same, yeah. The Sam Elliott Hero, that was the only one that I heard of. Hadn't seen it. But there's another Netflix original from 2020 that was released after this, called All Together Now. So 2 Netflix originals from Brett in 1 year, which is interesting.
Well, they done all right with this one, so I mean they would have actually committed to that one before this one was successful. So I'll stop saying that sentence.
That's all right. Phil's in some scenes that you like in this one, then some moment that you enjoyed.
Yeah, there's a few. I think the opening scene was really attention grabbing. Just seeing Violet standing on a bridge. The movie had been going for less than a minute, and that's what you walk into. And I like the fact that it didn't mess around. And this is what we're talking about. This is the movie that you're watching, so you might as well get on board straight away. I thought that was done pretty well. I like this initially. So when they go to Indiana's highest point, the idea of leaving those little artifacts behind, I thought that was a really cool thing in general. And then as it sort of happened more and more, I did just love the fact that Finch kind of left a part of him wherever he wandered. And it even is sort of highlighted by the final scene where you read his "I was here" thing in the book. He's kind of doing his own "I was here" wherever he went, leaving that statement. And I think there's something romantic and almost lyrical about that, which worked really nicely. And that sort of ties in as well with the "before I die" wall, that idea where they sort of didn't even really speak to each other that whole time. And I think his was obviously stay awake, which we didn't know the true meaning to at the time, and hers was to be brave, which was quite obvious. But I thought that was really strong. Change of tone a little bit, but I thought it was very funny when he was searching for the keys in the bush after he threw them. I appreciate that they didn't just ignore that. Like the fact that he just turfed the keys, I was like, they better, acknowledge the fact that he has just booted his keys. So I thought that was well done.
It was a funny, quick little cut.
And then you mentioned, it was like 3 or 4 seconds, but it's like, no, this movie is very aware of what it's trying to do. So I appreciated that. And as you said, the roller coaster scene was nice. I was exactly the same as you. I was holding my breath for her to have this breakdown. And it was just so refreshing to see her smile and laugh. I thought that was such a turning point of this film, because everything that led up to it was like, this is the moment where things are going all right, and bang, we realize that this trauma is still front and center for her. And it went away. So I thought that was excellent. Finch's death scene. I was not expecting him to die. I just wasn't. And I was just waiting and waiting. And they did that so well with his ability to hold his breath. And they show before he's done it before. I'm like, he's just going to pop up, or he's going to walk up behind her and be like, hey, why are you yelling at? Or Mark, she yells at Mark, are you going to hit Paula? They did it so many times where you're like, oh, this is the chance for him to come back. And it was brutal. It like took my breath away. I'll be perfectly honest. It really got me. I thought it was really, really powerful. And it just showed that the movie was very serious about the issues that it was tackling, which I really appreciated. And I think in a corny sort of way, her final speech did help me get on board with her a little bit, to see that she has come full circle with his help, and that she is coping all right, despite the fact that she can add another trauma to that list. I thought it was pretty nice, pretty powerful, and it said all the right things that I wanted to hear at the time. So there's a lot there that I liked in this movie.
Yeah, it's usually you cut to like 3, so I'm glad that we had more than that. I got some similar ones, some different ones. I think the start with Finch going home with his sister there, saying, dinner's there for your mum's not coming home, and then it's like a quick cut to Violet, and it shows the difference between the families, where they're sitting around. She's sitting with both parents around the table, and it's also that idea of the trauma that they're both facing in different instances, like absent family, both instances of different varying parts of the family. I thought that was a nice little start to the film.
No, it's true.
I don't know why. I liked when Finch like tagged Violet on Instagram with that song saying "Call Me" sort of thing. I thought that was a really, really cool pickup move. I thought that was clever.
He's a ballsy dude, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure was. He went after whatever he wanted.
Yeah, he did.
There's like a small shot just in the middle, like or towards the start of the film, where you see Violet's sister's room, and you like closes that door, and then at the end you just have that shot of it door opening. I just really thought that was really symbolic and really nice to show us where she'd come. The chalk wall that you spoke about too, the things to do before I die, thought that was great too. Won't add anything further to that. The other humorous moment, apart from the keys, I thought the counselor finishes with his counselor and has a go at him for using knockoff Post-it notes. I thought that was really funny. I thought that was a cool little line. And that final presentation, there are a few things I read that was like, what sort of teacher makes a kid still finish the project when your partner's died? So pretty ordinary teacher, but that
no, like let's not say that they made her. Like she might have wanted to.
I thought that presentation, like the bright places and even dark times, like I was welling up. That really got me, that last scene. Very emotional. Yeah.
Oh mate, I welled up when I realized that he was actually dead. That got me.
Yeah. Was there anything that you didn't like in this?
So the first thing I'm going to say, I'm very, very petty. It did annoy me. This is a guy who runs a lot. And I know the reason for him running wasn't to get fit, but he never ran in appropriate clothing. Like, I just wish like, at one point he was wearing like Converse sneakers and like you just couldn't get to the end of the street without being really uncomfortable by that point. So they could have done a little bit better with that. I get the idea behind it.
Tiny little
anyway. I gotta say this again. The kiss, the romance in this, I think you can omit the romance in this film and you don't actually lose anything because this connection they made is still very real. But I think it kind of opens it up a little bit more. It becomes more universal about being there for somebody, regardless of whether there is a romantic connection. Because then there is that level of, was he just kind of, like, I don't believe this is the case because of who the character is, but is he kind of trying to court her from the very start? Which I certainly don't think he was. I think they built that connection, but I just don't think it added much to the film. And as I said, when it happened, I was just like, what? Like, why is he kissing her? There's no reason for her to, be that desirable. So that really got me a little bit. And then there was a situation, I think it was before they jumped in the water the first time. And he says, like, what are you most afraid of? And her answer was being ordinary. And I just don't think that was her real answer. Like, I think it fit really nicely because it was a good excuse to, like, oh, you don't want to be ordinary? Let's just do something. Let's go out there and live our lives. I don't think that was what her biggest fear was. It sounded really good and it fit really well at the time, but it didn't actually make sense with anything else that she was doing or saying. So,
yeah. The only thing, and this is probably going to be just as petty as the running gear, I couldn't deal with Finch's chest hair. And that just really annoyed me. I think it's
very
twice.
true.
Like,
yeah,
it just was, I don't know, really off-putting.
And we shouldn't be body shaming.
No, I'm not trying to body shame. It just, I don't know. I was just, teenage kid who's still in high school that's got that amount of chest hair. It just didn't. Yep. It just made him appear a lot more older than he was supposed to be. So I think that's what the issue was. I'm supposed to be believing this is a 17-year-old, and he's got the chest of a 30-year-old. All right.
Wow, that was it. That's good for you.
That was it. Yeah, it's not bad for me. Themes, ideas. What was it trying to say?
Oh man, I kind of touched it before. It's all saying so much. A lot of them also are intertwined about how you want to live your life, but on a bigger scale, I think it really does, and hopefully does, people who watch this think of the idea of helping each other through pain, recognizing that someone is going through something and being there to help them. And on the flip side, if you are the person that's in that position, don't be afraid to ask for help or the consequences of what can happen if you are afraid to ask for help. In general, that all kind of ties down to this idea of let's just be a little bit kinder. Let's just treat people a little bit better. How nice would that be if we could do that all the time? And there is obviously a big story about mental health here. And if we can in some way understand the dangers of mental health a little bit better, then we're all going to be better off. And this movie doesn't really pull any punches in that regard. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah. So the idea too that, the mental health and the mental illness, like the depression, the bulimia, the bipolar, some of it does come from trauma, it comes from death, it comes from domestic violence, and sometimes this damage can't be healed. And like you said, they don't jump away from that idea too. And especially the difference, like there's differences, there's labels, and the impact that these things like nicknames and bullying can have without fully understanding someone too. And on the other hand too, like just sticking around and making sure there was that little idea of not giving up, not leaving. Because of those 1,000 capacities that they speak about too, finding them in yourself. So yeah, I think a lot to say, and I think they did it really nicely in this one too.
Yeah, me too.
What did you take away from this one?
I just realized that my one point here, I've already just harped on a lot, but I do think this movie works a lot better if it's not a romantic relationship and it is just a friendship. I think.
Good.
I think also, I don't think there was proper romantic chemistry between these two. I don't think that really existed. And it would obviously be going off script a little bit for these types of movies because that is, a big trope of it's basically a romantic drama, right? I just think it would do a lot more powerful job of highlighting the core themes of the film without losing much on the other end.
Nice. We sort of touched on what I took away too, that the ideas or the themes of Finch practicing the breathing underwater. I just thought that gave such good context for the end of this film too, because he was angry. He went to the lake, and maybe he was just doing one of his anger moves and holding his breath underwater, and he couldn't hold on anymore. So maybe it wasn't a purposeful choice of taking his life. And I like that idea that there's a little bit of hope there as well, like that it's not just all doom and gloom. You can interpret that how you want, but maybe there was hope. Maybe he was trying to use a method to calm down and get back out there, and maybe it just went wrong.
What do you say about swimming to the center of the lake and coming out the other side or something as well?
Yeah, exactly. Good. All right. So, IMDb, did you go on to look anyone up from this film?
I did. His sister Kate, played by Alexandra Shipp, main love interest in Tick Tick Boom. She's great. I really like her because she was in Dude as well when she was in Dude. Is it called Dude? Yeah. I like her.
Good. I looked up the friend Amanda, played by Virginia Gardner. It was a real familiar face. I think the only thing I've seen her in was she was a character called Marissa in Glee for 2 episodes, like ages ago. And that's it. So otherwise, just maybe a familiar face that couldn't recognize. But
maybe it stuck with you.
Maybe. Question time. Is there any questions you want to ask me about this?
I got a big one. Do you think this is a different film if Finch doesn't die? Do you think the messaging around mental health is a lot stronger because of it?
I think the way that they go about it in this film, because I think in the book it's very explicit that like he takes his own life, I think, from what I saw. So I like the way that they did in this, that they left it, like they mentioned, they worked so hard on creating a message that was meaningful, impactful. So I think that was really important how they did it.
Yeah, I think it's stronger because of it. I think as soon as he dies, you're like, okay, this movie is actually really trying to tell us something.
Good. I don't have any questions. I couldn't think of anything.
Oh, that's rare.
Yeah, I have one question, but I'm going to save it for our social media question. So
I do like that.
That was the only thing I could come up with. So we're pretty much done. Crazy. I thought we'd talk a lot longer, but that's all right. Let's put it all together. Come up with our final thoughts. Rating out of 5. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, I think this was a real winner for me. It gave me all those feels whilst watching it, and it completely sucked me in. And I have to admit, as you probably know, we're recording this in October, and I'm all in on horror movies at the moment and trying to watch as many as I can, which I do most Octobers. So I was pretty reluctant to put this one on. So in a sense, this movie, I'm coming from a long way back to enjoy this movie because I'm going, I don't really want to watch a romantic drama right now where I'm all in this horror. So it's coming from a lot further back, and it still grabbed my wholehearted attention, grabbed it very quickly and really won me over. So it's a job really well done for me. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I really want to give it 4, but I think it's still sitting at 3.5 at the moment. I think maybe a bit more time soaking it in. If it really stays with me, then it probably would become a 4, but it's 3.5 for now.
Lovely. Yeah, I really like this film too. I think we said this a few times. It felt real, and I think it dealt with serious teen issues without relying on lame comedic moments, which we've seen in a lot of the Netflix original films. Like they try to have a humorous character or things like that, and they didn't have that in here. And I think that really, makes this film what it is, because it could have been a disaster. But they trusted the leads too. I mean, realistically, really good performances. And this film's almost like essential viewing for your sort of late teen audience. I'm giving it a 3.5 as well.
Yeah, good.
3.5 out of 5. I was I'm happy. I'm glad we both enjoyed that. Because these are the sorts of films sometimes I really go into going, oh no, I really don't want to watch this. But I was pleasantly surprised. Very nice.
Yeah. And I'm it's nice to hear, and like the things that you picked up on don't surprise me. That they resonated with you. But yeah, it's always these sort of films can go the other way with you a lot of the time.
Yeah, true. Well, we're on socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The question for our social followers, where is your bright place? Where's that bright place in your life? That's a tricky one to sort of identify. What's the one place that just makes you happy. For me, it's Disney
Good
World.
point.
Like Disney World. If I could go anywhere in the world right now, I'd get on a plane and go there. But like closer to home, like is it on a sporting field? Where is it? What gives you happiness in your day-to-day life? Bed. I
It's a
don't
good
know.
question. And you know what? I wish I had and it probably says something about whether you have a quick answer or not. Because if you don't, maybe you should be thinking
don't
about
need
that
it.
more often.
Or maybe you don't need it because life is good for you. Happiness
Yeah.
is all around too. Yeah. Excellent.
True, but being conscious and aware of that is important too.
Very true. Well, we're back next week. We've got another Hindi film from 2020. It's the thriller drama Guilty. It's directed by Ruchit Naran. It stars Kiara Advani, Akansha Rajan Kapoor, Gofatet Singh Parada, and Tahir Shabir. So that's what we've got next week.
I love that you leant forward to make sure, like you were sitting back and relaxing, we're talking about life and bright places, and you're like, "Oh, I've got to read some names."
I practiced them last night too, and I still didn't. I was like, I'm going to do it perfect. Still didn't. That's okay.
It's almost like you tricked yourself. You're like, "Oh no, it's time. It's go time. I'm not ready."
I was too busy just chatting about this film. Anyway, so that's what we've got next week. As always, it's great talking film. So I'm glad we had a good one this week. It was nice.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, it was very, very good to talk about. And I really enjoyed this one.
Excellent. And I'll see you next week.
See you then, mate.